A tone change in the middle of a story can be dangerous. If I clicked into a show expecting something scary and it turns into a rom-com 3 episodes in, I may click off never to return. The Promised Neverland, for example, experienced a drop in audience rating when the tone shifted from the first season's psychological thriller to the second season's action-adventure. Yet, when a tone shift works, it becomes a highlight of an entire story. For me, 2011's Puella Majima do Kamachika is a great example of how a good tone change should be done. The story's dark undertone has been there since episode 1, and by the time the end of the 3rd episode rolls around, the shock feels earned. In the case of Oblivion Battery, its first and most important tone change occurs in episode 6. Up to this point, the story has been your typical high school sports comedy. But as I mentioned in my video on episode 1, the core theme of the story is actually trauma. Episode 6 is the first deep dive the anime takes into this theme. This episode starts off like usual, with Kei suggesting that the group have a study session over at Todo's place. In Todo's room, the group has a quick discussion on left-handed versus right-handed batting. As we know, Kei was a right-handed batter, but changed to left-handed batting sometimes during his senior league days. This was a choice made to maximize his chances of scoring runs. Chaya points this out and uses the term dongyoku to describe Commander's playing style. The first character means greed, and the second character means desire. So Chaya is describing Commander as an extremely gluttonous player, one who will not let go of any slight chances of scoring. Haruka confirms this, yet when Kei asks if he wants Commander to return, Haruka answers, Keep this in mind, this is the one thing Haruka will continue to insist throughout the series, that Kei is Kei no matter what. As the group proceeds to make it their goal to avenge Teitoku, Todo lets his cat out of the bag. He's got yips. He's unable to pass to first base. This is where the tone of the story takes a sharp turn. But right before we enter Todo's flashback, we get an extra shot of him looking out the window toward this infrastructure. This is actually the second time this thing has come up. The first time was when Kei looked at it en route to Todo's place. Sensing that this may be important, I decided to do a bit of digging. So, Todo's residence is based on a real place in Tokyo, an apartment complex called Tamagawa Jutaku. And this infrastructure is one of the many water towers in the area. Without them, families will lose access to their water supply. I'll leave it at that for now, as I'll come back to these water towers later on. Back to Todo's story, as he begins recollecting his past, we're introduced to the Todo before he encountered Haruka and Commander. He was confident, enthusiastic, and self-assured. Like Haruka, Todo thought of himself as an exceptional player. But unlike Haruka, Todo was friendly and easygoing. Despite him being the member of the team with the best skill set, he still respects his teammates more than anything. All things considered, Todo's senior league team, Oizumi, was a close-knit team. So much so that Todo wished to play with the same people in high school. Such team dynamics also shielded Todo in a loving bubble. What ultimately broke that bubble was the monstrous battery. Oizumi's game with Hoya occurred during Todo's second year with the team. This is the same as the one that was shown in the beginning of episode 1. Here we get more of Todo's perspective. The first pitch landed outside the strike zone, 1 ball. As we have seen before, this pitch frightened Todo. This is the first time in his life that he thought, I can't hit this pitch. Todo remained in shock as Haruka made his second pitch, leading to his first strike. Todo swung for the following 2 pitches, but missed both. 2 more strikes, Todo gets struck out. Todo is not typically bothered by being struck out, as his swings are enough to apply pressure to the opposing battery. But here, his swings did nothing to Haruka and Commander. It took the battery only 4 pitches to destroy the confidence Todo had taken years to build. As Todo stepped off the batter's box, the feeling that hit him first was not hatred, but something closer to respect. Being defeated by someone more experienced is reasonable, but seeing players of the same age towering over him felt different. A huge despair bit down on him as Todo realized that he is not the best player there is, not even close to how good he thought he was. As I mentioned in a video earlier, Todo is an instinct-type player. How he plays is largely determined by how he feels, and at that moment, he was at his lowest. But the good news was that Haruka, also an instinct-type player, was similarly not feeling his best that day. The game was going Oizumi's favor. Then, Todo made the biggest error of his baseball career. He made a wild throw, one that was impossible for the first baseman to catch. Todo described his mind going blank, his blood going cold, and all he could hear was his heartbeat. Todo can't recall how exactly he made that throw. In other words, he had lost parts of his memory, just like Kei. After that throw, everything came crashing down for Oizumi. The team eventually lost the game. Todo's one error ended his older teammates last summer on the field. Then Todo made a choice that would come to haunt him. He apologized. His teammates being the supportive and kind people they are, of course, Totoro is not his fault. And Todo knew this is exactly what they'd say. He had taken advantage of the team's kindness. But Todo also knows better than anyone that apologizing will not change the fact that it was his mistake that led to the defeat of his team. It will not change the fact that he is the only person scouted by Teitoku. In the manga, there's an additional panel with Todo saying, "Even if I end my life, it won't change the result. We lost." From that day on, guilt took the form of yips and it destroyed him. The failure played again and again in Todo's mind. He quit the team, threw his baseball glove away, dyed his hair, headed out for nightly runs, and resorted to violence just so he could momentarily forget about baseball. Parts of him probably wanted to believe if he messed up his body, there would be an excuse to never touch baseball again. This seemed to be the only way that he can find atonement. Later on, when a delinquent whom Todo had beaten up earlier gathered a group of his friends to avenge, the idea of running never even occurred to Todo. He's not scared. This is nothing compared to the psychological torture he'd been enduring. During the fight, Todo gets hit in the leg by a baseball bat. Instead of worrying if that hit broke his bones, Todo murmurs, "This is not how baseball bats should be used." He loves baseball, but his nightmares return each time he picks up a bat and glove. And no matter how hard he tries to run away, that love will always be there. So when Kei asked if he wanted to play baseball together, Todo's heart immediately reacted. This marks the end of episode 6. We now know what truly led Todo to quit baseball. Not because he was defeated by Harugan Commander, but because of yips. In retrospect, the biggest reason for Todo's crash comes from how his perception of responsibility has changed. Being the best on the team means carrying the responsibilities that come with such. How he digested these responsibilities was essential. Before encountering Harugan Commander, these responsibilities were a motivator for Todo. He was confident, so being able to carry the team is something he was proud of. Todo was more than willing to put in double, triple, even quadruple the effort if that means he can lead his team to victory. But Haruka's pitches crushed the confidence that was so important in keeping Todo motivated. Without that confidence, responsibilities become pressure, and that pressure weighs more than one can imagine. Todo couldn't take that weight and crashed during the game. As a result, Todo ran. Yet, seeing Kei, who has lost all his baseball-related memories, picking up baseball again struck a chord with Todo. If a complete newbie can try his best to pick up the sports he once loved, why shouldn't he give himself another chance? Like the water towers mentioned earlier, Todo's role in the team is irreplaceable. But water towers never work alone. There are 5 such water towers in the Tamagawa area. If one breaks, there are 4 more that can help with the water supply. Oizumi's loss is not just a fault of Todo's mistake. It was a mixture of many things stacking up. Perhaps the Oblivion Battery could have done a better job in preventing Hoya batters from getting hit. Or perhaps the infielders could have acted quicker and put more Hoya players out. Or perhaps the outfielders could have catch more hits precisely to prevent Hoya players from scoring. Yes, Todo's error may be severe, but as long as the game is ongoing, they have a chance to take these points back. No matter how good of a player Todo is, there's only so much he can do. After all, it does take 9 players to make a team. If you're not a fan of baseball, it may be a bit difficult to understand the appeal of Oblivion Battery just by watching the first 5 episodes. And that is what makes episode 6 such an important turning point. No longer are we shielded by the easygoing high school slice of life facade. Instead, we get a raw and brutal reality check. And this change only works because the anime had planted details in the previous 5 episodes to prepare us for what's to come. For example, the first 3 minutes of episode 1 is huge in helping us understand the undertone of the story. The characters barely spoke, but the soundtrack and each character's expressions are sufficient in helping us understand what they're feeling. In episode 2, Todo and Chihaya each had a couple of seconds of flashback foreshadowing the past they tried to put away. In episode 4, Kei being hit in the face by a pitch triggered something in him that almost had him unable to catch again. These darker moments take up a tiny portion of the first 5 episodes, but without them, the tone change in episode 6 would not have worked. Oblivion Battery's writing is so clever in that it hides important details about each character's past and seemingly heartless jokes. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but Kei's Paigate, him wanting to go to Kichijoji, and wanting to be loved are all related to his dark past. Something we'll get hints of at the very end of this season. I guess what I'm trying to say is Oblivion Battery is going to be my new Puella Majima Doka Magica? Hello, Potato here. Thank you all for making it to the end of this video. Today I'm just going to point out some details from the previous episodes about Todo that are either explained or brought up again in this episode. In episode 2, Todo mentioned that he broke his television. In this episode, we learn why. The coaching game he saw on TV reminded him too much of his past failure. He couldn't bear that pressure, so the TV had to go. In the same episode, Yama observes that Todo still trains his lower body, which we now know is also true, as Todo does set out for nightly runs so he can distract himself from the nightmares. Later on, in episode 4, during the 5th inning of the Kotetsuchi vs. Teitoku game, Todo wanted to pass to first base, but hesitated. Chihaya's reaction here does indicate he sensed something being off, but he isn't entirely sure, as the first baseman was distracted. So it can't be interpreted as Todo not thinking it was viable to make that throw. Now another reason for the hesitation is actually his yips. Episode 6, however, is not the end of Todo's arc. The next episode goes into how he tries to overcome his yips and the appearance of someone from Todo's past. Okay, that is it for now. Thanks again for making it to the end of this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!